Hello, welcome to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. You have a unique cosmic imprint, and you may start learning about your uniqueness by listening the gates of your chart. Today you are going to learn or recap, as the case may be, about Hexagram 25, Innocence, the spirit of the self, the perfection of action through uncontrived and spontaneous nature. Hexagram 25 is part of first trimester of ALCYONE, where we accomplish our purpose through mind, initiation, thinking, thoughts. Gate 25 corresponds to God Michael, building the angelic mind. Michael is the core of the mind's programming, the separation and comparison of light or good versus dark or bad. The Michael archetype embodies God's messenger with his sword of truth. Here, the mind brings moral laws that determine good and evil, separating matter and exalting spirit. The Godhead Michael is one of these divine archetypes, representing strength, leadership, protection, and divine order. It is linked to the Archangel Michael, a powerful warrior angel often seen as the defender of truth and justice. Zodiac sign: Pisces for line 1 and 2, and Aries for lines 3, 4, 5, and 6. Gate 25 flows within the individual centering circuitry, which is about exploration, initiation, present, hearing, acoustic, melancholy, empowering myself and empowering others. Keyword: empowerment. Center, G center, the magnetic monopole, regarding identity, direction, love. The harmonic gate is number 51, the gate of shock, to go where no one has gone. They form the projected channel 25 and 51, the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. The opposite gate is number 46, the gate of determination of the self, pushing upward. This is a gate of the love, trust, and guidance of our bodies. Aminoacid, arginine. Relevant organ, heart. Tarot card associated, death. Major arcana, enter 13. Gate 25 in first trimester, in Michael, forms the channel with gate 51, located in the same trimester, the same archetype of Michael. This way, amino acid arginine associated with gate 25 communicates with the same amino acid arginine of gate 51. It is relevant for the value and functioning of this gate to observe that amino acid arginine is the same in all of the gates of Michael, 25, 17, 21, 51. The first 4 lines of all 4 gates are identical. They differentiate in the 5th and 6th line of each of these 4 hexagrams. Regarding arginine, we have to observe that there are 6, not 4 gates, that share the same amino acid. 4 gates, as I said, in the first trimester, 25, 17, 21, 51, gates of Michael, and also gate 10 and 38 in the 4th trimester, both belonging to Vishnu. So, arginine is helping us to accomplish the purpose through mind and initiation, and also through mutation and spirit. When you see arginine in a body graph, you might think of the possibility of, let's say, transferred behavior, meaning a person might have 25th gate activated, but behaving like a 17 or 21, or a 10 behaving like 38th gate. This is a risk, especially when one of these gate is not activated in fact in your chart, but you use it because of the arginine associated with the gate that is activated. This is an unbalanced way of using arginine. If we balance the problems of our life regarding our opinions and acceptance capacity, gate 17, or in relation with the behavior of self, gate 10, or regarding control, gate 21, is it possible to get to balance the amino acids in our body? And as a consequence, can we balance our health? Just ponder on this, how this balance can be obtained. Maybe in first trimester through thinking, by changing a mindset and in the fourth trimester by taking care about our spirit, accepting mutation, paying attention to the state of spirit, behaving in resonance to our real state of spirit, to our real self. Physically speaking, L-arginine is an amino acid that helps the body build protein. Your body usually makes all the L-arginine it needs. It is also found in most protein-rich foods, including fish, red meat, poultry, soy, whole grains, beans, and dairy products. Most healthy people do not need to supplement with arginine because it is a component of all protein-containing foods and can be synthesized in the body from glutamine via citrulline. Arginine is made by the body as follows. The epithelial cells of the small intestine produce citrulline, primarily from glutamine and glutamate, which is secreted into the bloodstream, which carries it to the proximal cells of the kidney, which extract the citrulline and convert it to arginine, which is returned to the blood. This means that impairment of kidney function or small intestine can reduce arginine synthesis and thus create a dietary requirement for arginine. For such a person, arginine would become essential. Arginine plays an important role in cell division, wound healing, removing ammonia from the body, immune function, and the release of hormones. It is a precursor for the synthesis of nitric oxide, making it important in the regulation of blood pressure. Arginine is necessary for T cells to function in the body and can lead to their deregulation if depleted. So besides observing the transferred behavior that I talked about earlier, it will be very interesting if you connect arginine, together with the 6 gates that are related to it, with the gates which are relevant for glutamine, gates 13 and 30, for T cells, gate 26, and even with the gates relevant for serine, since arginine in 10th gate, the same amino acid as for gate 17, is opposing serine in the 15th gate. Your conclusions will be a pleasant surprise. So, since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of gate 25, you also know the benefits of the amino acid associated with the behavior of this placement. You have the elements to keynote the message of this gate. If you have this gate active in your chart, take your time, compose the key phrase of this gate, and feel how it resonates. Leave a comment, share your insights and understandings. Now let's have a look to the energy of gate 25, a gate of innocence, the spirit of the self, the perfection of action through uncontrived and spontaneous nature. Structure of Hexagram 25 is about heaven over thunder. Heaven symbolizes pure, unconditioned energy, divine will, and clarity of purpose. Thunder represents movement, awakening, and initiation. Together, these two trigrams reflect the power of acting in alignment with natural forces, rather than forcing things or being attached to outcomes. Core meaning of this hexagram is spontaneity and purity of action. 1. Acting without attachment is essential. True innocence is a state of being where actions arise naturally without manipulation, fear, or greed. This hexagram advises us to trust life rather than trying to control or manipulate outcomes. 2. Uncontrived and spontaneous. Nature is just as a child laughs, a flower blooms, or the sun rises. These are actions that arise from innocence, being effortless and correct. This state is not passive, but deeply engaged with life, responding to situations with presence and authenticity. 3. Misfortune comes when we force things. If we act from ego, fear, or impatience, we lose our innocence and disrupt the natural flow of life. The I Ching warns that pushing against fate or acting with personal agendas leads to struggle and misfortune. This hexagram directly aligns with Gate 25 in human design, reinforcing the theme of universal love, trust, and alignment with the flow of life. Both emphasize the importance of acting without expectation or ulterior motives, leading to true self-realization. Hexagram 25 advises us to be in harmony with the natural flow of life, and to avoid attachment to outcomes. Act from pure intent. Be aware that misfortune arises when we force, control, or manipulate. True power of this gate comes from trust, presence, and openness. Gate 25. In human design, known as Innocence, the spirit of the self, is a powerful energy rooted in pure love, spontaneity, and an unconditioned connection to life. Found in the G Center, this gate embodies universal love, divine trust, and the ability to move through life with an open heart, untouched by external conditioning. Core theme of this gate is innocence and unconditional love. Gate 25 represents the perfection of action through spontaneity and an uncontrived nature. People with this gate in their design are often guided by an inner purity, where they are not driven by expectations, external pressures, or even personal desires. They simply act from a place of deep alignment with life. This is not innocence in the naive sense, but rather a deep, unshakable trust in life itself, no matter how chaotic or painful it might seem. It is about embracing life fully, without fear or attachment, allowing everything to unfold naturally. Any gate embodies the duality of the value or energy that is brought here. This is what Gate 25 might also be about: the loss of innocence. When deeply conditioned by external forces, individuals with this gate may struggle with feelings of disconnection, betrayal, or cynicism. Gate 25 can bring shock and suffering. As part of the channel of initiation, 2551, if connected to Gate 51, Gate 25 often experiences shocking events that serve to awaken the spirit and return the person to their natural innocence. There is also the challenge to having a closed heart, because if the energy of this gate is blocked or misaligned, the person may shut down emotionally, resisting the natural flow of universal love. If you have Gate 25 in your design, then to live this gate in a high expression is about living with an open heart, free from expectations or attachments, acting with spontaneity and authenticity, trusting life's unfolding, holding deep, unconditional love for all beings beyond personal relationships, being a source of healing and inspiration simply through presence, not effort. If Gate 25 is connected to Gate 51, the gate of shock, this forms the channel of initiation, a powerful energy that thrusts individuals into transformative experiences. These experiences may be shocking or intense, but they ultimately serve to initiate the person into a deeper level of self-awareness and spiritual growth. A very useful lesson for this gate is to remain open, trusting, and present in the face of life's unpredictability without needing to control or resist it. This gate reminds us that true love and purity come from within, not from external validation or circumstances. The words of Ra'uruhu are very enlightening regarding the final understanding of this gate, interrelated with gates of love. About the collective gates of love, like 15th gate and the 46th gate. Remember that it is not about the way in which love is externalized, but it is about the way of how love is internalized. Here is what Ra'uruhu said. I quote from Line Companion. Everything about the love rooted in the ego, or the love rooted in electromagnetic connections, is all about the externalization of love, but it has nothing to do with the higher self. It has nothing to do with our connection to the totality. That has to do with the internalization of love. We saw in the love of humanity that, rather than it being the cliché, love thy neighbor, it is to be oneself and to allow everybody else to be themselves. That generates a healthy aura. When it comes to the physical body, the greatest dilemma that people have in their life is that most human beings don't like the body they were given. It does not mean just the aesthetic values of the body. It has to do with what seem to be the potentials of that body, whether it is the nature of the brain, the type of metabolism, the shapes or the sizes, and it has to do with the fact that the body is a burden. In order for the body to be healthy, the experience of being in the body has to be accepted without question. That is the nature of what it is to love oneself in terms of loving what it is to be in the body, to love the flesh. To love the flesh is to accept that what one is and what one has is exactly what one is supposed to have, and exactly the right thing for one's karma, for one's geometry in this life, and that the only way in which you are healthy is if you surrender to life. That is what the 46 is all about. It is about surrendering to life. The 44 is part of the mechanism that is rooted in the 46. That is, these splenic gates are guided by its prime gate 46, to surrender to what it is to be alive. The first thing to recognize about collective love is that it is not what you think that is. It is collective only in the sense that it becomes love in the world out of the collective, but out of each and every single one of the collective. Again, see clearly that the two collective gates of love are directly opposite two individual gates of love, and this individual process, because we are individuated beings, is at the core of our experience. So it is not about one's capacities to bring love out into the world. It is about the inside. It is about accepting what it is to be oneself. The 25th gate is very complex because it is part of the centering circuit, and therefore, it is an essential ingredient in turning everything towards individuality. The centering circuit, like the defense circuit, is a minor circuit. Minor circuits can always be added, or their influence can always be connected to any other circuit. So, the centering circuit, whenever it is present, always brings things towards their individuality. That is the first thing. The second thing about the 25th gate, you can see that the gates of love are constructed out of circuitry that is both individual and collective, and there is no tribal possibility. The tribal possibility to connect to love is through the 5125. So, the 25 not only represents a capacity to express love for the individual, it is also at the heart of how the love of self is available to the tribe as well. More than that, the 25th gate has a highly mystical value which we will not deal with here. It is not possible to teach the mystical value of any of these gates without really understanding that the structure of the hexagram has to be seen differently. The mundane values of the 25th gate are what I will deal with here. Above the lines it says, the perfection of action through an uncontrived and spontaneous nature. The perfection. Perfection is not a word you find very often, particularly in the rave I Ching, of action. Right away there should be an enormous question in your head. What the hell has action to do with the 25th gate? The 25th gate is part of the G center and is not connected to a motor. Through an uncontrived, not motivated, not made up, not predetermined, not worked out, and spontaneous nature. Nature is a word that is specifically related to the 10th gate. The 25th gate and the 10th gate have a deep connection to each other because they are both about a possibility of centering the nature of humanity, that is, centering the behavior of the individual so that the individual can survive in the world. End of quote. I hope I've piqued your curiosity with all these explanations and subtle connections in our body, because we go on now to climb the 6 lines ladder of Gate 25. It's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 25th gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 25 plays its role for our conscious son and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 25, Line 1, Selflessness. Motiveless action. In human design, Gate 25 represents innocence, the spirit of the self that acts spontaneously and purely without attachment to outcomes. When we look at Line 1, Selflessness, we see the foundation of this gate, the purest form of acting without personal motive or expectation. This line is deeply connected to the first line archetype, the investigator. Every Line 1 carries an investigative energy, seeking solid foundations in life. With Gate 25.1, This means a deep inner exploration of what true selflessness means. These individuals often study, reflect, and seek wisdom to understand the nature of innocence and unconditional love. This line embodies true selflessness, taking action simply because it is in alignment with one's nature, not for personal gain or recognition. It reflects a state of pure love and surrender, where one does what is right without expecting anything in return. This is the essence of innocence at its core, a childlike trust in life that allows actions to be genuine and uncontrived. In the highest expression of this line, you act out of love and authenticity without expecting rewards, praise, or personal benefit. You have a deep trust in the universe, knowing that when actions come from purity, everything aligns naturally. It is about embodying the spirit of giving, whether through kindness, healing, or simply being present for others. In the lower expression, or being in not self or shadow, whatever we call this other side of manifestation in our life, this gate brings naivety or self-sacrifice because giving too much without boundaries leads to burnout or being taken advantage of. You may also feel disillusioned if others don't reciprocate or if the world seems unfair. Be aware of the risk of becoming disconnected from the self in an effort to serve others. The lesson here is to act without personal motive, not for rewards, recognition, or even to feel good about oneself, but simply because it is the natural, aligned thing to do. The greatest challenge is to maintain this innocence without expectation, trusting that life will take care of the rest. Ra Uru Hu says that the 25 is pointed towards the most dynamic willpower in the body. It is pointed towards the deepest sense of ego power, because the will in the 51 is an enormous thing, and that will is deeply possessive. I am the power, says the 51, and the 25 says, no, the power exists. The 25 is selfless in the sense that it is not going to claim ego power. The 51 says, I am the jumper, and the 25 says, there is only the jump. There is no claim, no possessiveness here. One cannot possess the universe. Motiveless action. Here, we come to a very important impact in the genetic continuity of the global program because in the 25.1 and the 25.3, we have lines that are impacted by the fact that neither Neptune nor Pluto has been in Aries for a very long time. The 25 with 51 is an Arian channel, and both Pluto and Neptune have been far away from being able to activate this channel of initiation for many years. The first thing to recognize about selflessness is that the overview is motiveless action. It is something that has to be learned. It is an overview. We are all conditioned to be motivated, all of us. We are conditioned to have a motive. If you do this, you get that. We are always conditioned by motivation. End of quote. Neptune exalted. The universalization of activity. Psychic attunement that is its own reward. The potential for centering through attunement to challenges. As basic themes we have here, motiveless action and the universalization of activity. While Gate 25 represents innocence, purity of action, and universal love, Line 1, selflessness, is the foundation of this energy. This line seeks a deep inner truth about what it means to act without motive, ego, or expectation, simply being aligned with life's natural flow. When Neptune is exalted in this first line, this selflessness reaches a higher spiritual dimension, emphasizing psychic attunement, universal connection, and divine trust in life's unfolding. We see a key theme to deal with, centering through attunement to challenges. Neptune enhances the spiritual and mystical nature of this line, making it deeply intuitive and connected to higher realms. The individual feels aligned with the universal flow of energy. There is no need to control, force, or manipulate circumstances. Challenges and difficulties become opportunities for centering, allowing the person to stay present, trust, and flow through obstacles rather than resisting them. How this manifests in life? We haven't seen it yet, but analyzing the message of this exaltation, the higher expression of this placement sounds like deep trust in the universe, understanding that everything unfolds as it should. Psychic sensitivity and attunement, it's about a natural ability to sense and align with the greater flow of life. Selflessness in action by helping others without needing recognition or reward. Mastering challenges by remaining centered when you respond to life's ups and downs with calm and grace. When aligned, this line sets the stage for true selflessness, creating a powerful example for others to follow. If not fully aligned, the exaltation of Neptune may challenge you to feel disconnected or lost, struggling to trust life's direction. Over-identify with suffering, feeling that being selfless means enduring hardship without boundaries. Escapism or illusion, Neptune's energy, if ungrounded, can lead to avoidance or detachment from reality. In time, you learn that true lesson of Gate 25, Line 1, Neptune exalted, is to embody pure, motiveless action, trusting in universal guidance and using psychic attunement as a tool for centering amidst life's challenges. This line teaches that selflessness is its own reward. When we act without expectation, we align naturally with the flow of life. Mercury and detriment, a tendency to publicize one's selflessness, the insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. Line 1, selflessness, is the foundation of this energy, seeking to act without motive or ego, simply aligned with life's natural flow. However, with Mercury in detriment, the innocence of selfless action becomes tainted by insecurity. Instead of purely embodying selflessness, there may be a need for external validation, leading to a tendency to publicize one's selfless actions or struggle with self-doubt in times of challenge. The core theme that is prominent here is the conflict between true selflessness and the need for recognition. Mercury, the planet of communication and intellect, struggles in detriment here because true selflessness does not need to be spoken. It simply exists. When challenged, the self feels insecure and seeks validation, wanting others to notice or acknowledge its selfless acts. Instead of fully trusting in the universal flow, the person may try to explain or prove their innocence, purity, or goodness, rather than just embodying it. Mercury in detriment helps you. Recognizing the insecurity behind the need for validation and working through it. Learning to let action speak louder than words. True selflessness does not need to be advertised. Strengthening inner security so that challenges do not shake the foundation of innocence and trust. Or, on the other side, to the lower expression of this placement, it is about seeking acknowledgement for selfless acts, wanting others to see and validate one's goodness, feeling insecure or lost during challenges, doubting oneself instead of trusting the natural flow, talking about selflessness rather than embodying it, intellectualizing or justifying one's actions instead of simply living them. With the Mercury in detriment, the need for security can turn into doubt and over-explanation rather than just trusting in the selflessness itself. The lesson here is to find true security within so that selfless action can remain pure without needing validation or recognition. You will learn in time to recognize when insecurity is driving the need for validation and shift from talking about selflessness to simply living it. True selflessness does not need an audience. It is its own reward. R.A. Uruhu explains us this line from the perspective of both exaltation of Neptune and the detriment of Mercury. I quote, "Neptune exalted as a line does not exist in the world. Neptune will get there probably around the time that the cycle changes in 2027. Pluto will be in Aries in 2080. What we have is the Mercury in detriment, a tendency to publicize one's selflessness. It is the only thing that is active in the first line, and remember that this is the foundation. This is the foundation of what selflessness is in our age. It is a tendency to publicize one's selflessness. Mother Teresa, Princess Diana, all this propaganda about how selfless one is. It is not enough to be a quiet philanthropist. Everyone has to blow their philanthropic horn. That is, everybody is making a claim about their selflessness. Look how selfless I am. Look, I have no motive. I am just a wonderful person. In the White Book, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges, that does not exist. We don't have that. There will be a generation born with it someday. But what we are dealing with now, the insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge, that is very productive for us. We live in an era where the self is insecure, and so we have an enormous movement throughout the world that people try to secure their identity. Who am I? What am I? Where am I? Is there a motive? Is only God great? You can see that the detriment here is one of the keys to the revival of fundamentalism and theocracies in the world. This lack of identity being imprinted by old religious symbols onto people. The insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. Challenge is a keynote for the channel. That is, the competitiveness that lies in initiation always has to deal with the challenge of the ego that must be met. What happens here in the challenge from the ego is that the selflessness is there, but it always has to be expressed because there is uncertainty about the quality of identity. In other words, the identity is not strong enough just to be silently motiveless. That identity has to be able to say, look what I have done. Ain't I terrific? I hope that they are going to make me a saint. This is lower trigram, so it does not know that the 51 and its power is there. It can be quite shocking, obviously, to meet that, and the spirit of the self is always challenged by that shock. So, the first thing to recognize is that we live in a time in which the global identity is very weak, because this is the foundation of the self in our era. Please, Master, tell me who I am. During the transit of Mercury, we may discover what selflessness is, which means to recognize the motives that are at the root of our actions. It may seem selfless, but in reality is not. End of quote. Gate 25, line 2, The Existentialist, Devotion and Dedication to the Now. In human design, Gate 25 represents innocence, the pure, unconditioned love of the self that acts spontaneously without motive. Line 2, The Existentialist, brings a unique flavor to this energy, emphasizing complete devotion to the present moment. This gate has a natural connection to the role of a second line, the natural. Line 2 energy, in any gate, is naturally gifted, but often unaware of its impact on others. It is often called out by others to share its wisdom, even though it may not seek attention. The existentialist, Gate 25.2, may naturally radiate peace, trust, and surrender, influencing others simply through presence. The main theme of the overview line is about living fully in the now. This line embodies the purest form of presence, where life is experienced as it is, without resistance or anticipation of the future. There is a deep trust in the process of life, without the need to analyze, control, or plan. Simplicity and flow are key elements, since actions and experiences unfold naturally, without force or struggle. How this line manifests in life is an aspect that is really important to grasp, but in both ways, since there is the higher and lower expression of this, the self and the not self. In the highest expression, this energy can manifest as living with radical presence, embracing each moment fully without distraction, trusting life's unfolding, not needing to force outcomes or seek validation, allowing love, experiences, and connections to flow naturally without expectations. Instead, the lower expression is about detachment from responsibility, being so present that one ignores practical needs or long-term commitments. Recklessness or avoidance is possible to be experienced when you use being in the now as an excuse to escape accountability. You may feel lost or directionless, especially if external pressure demands future planning. Remember, embrace total devotion to the present moment, trusting that when one is fully engaged with life right now, the future will take care of itself. In these gates of love, we will see that we have certain lines which are unusual in their performance or values. This second line is particularly so. It embodies the nature of what innocence really is. Innocence is only possible existentially. There is no other way to be innocent. Following what we have seen about collective love, that collective love is rooted in being oneself. Selflessness, motivelessness, is rooted in the now. Only in the now is one free of guile. The existentialist, devotion and dedication to the now. Like all lower trigrams, the motivelessness is only broken by the other side stepping in, because this is the nature of the hexagram. The motivelessness is there naturally. It is only broken by the other side stepping in. In this moment, what has been motiveless and selfless can take on another nature. When somebody says to you, "You are so selfless," that is the moment that your selflessness begins to disappear. Mercury exalted, the perfection of the intellect through concentration and focus on what is, rather than what could be or has been. The innocence of the self and its protection can only be maintained in the now. Line 2, the existentialist, highlights the power of living fully in the present moment, without being distracted by the past or future. With Mercury exalted, the intellect is highly refined, allowing for deep focus and concentration on what is happening right now. This brings a natural clarity, mental presence, and purity of perception, protecting the innocence of the self. Key theme is the power of presence and mental purity. Mercury brings intellectual precision, allowing this line to focus only on what is happening in the present, rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. True innocence can only be maintained in the now. When we are fully present, we act with purity, untainted by regrets or expectations. This is the energy of mindfulness and pure awareness, where the mind aligns with life's natural flow, free from unnecessary distractions. This placement manifests in life as high or low expression of the energy. High expression of Mercury exalted brings some gifts, such as a sharp, present-focused mind, seeing reality clearly without distortion from past experiences or future anxieties. A natural ability to stay centered in the now, trusting life's flow instead of overanalyzing or trying to control outcomes. A refined sense of innocence and trust, as staying present prevents the self from being corrupted by external influences. With Mercury exalted, this second line brings an intuitive intelligence that thrives in real-time experiences rather than needing external validation or study. This person trusts their own presence and instincts, responding to life as it unfolds. If you live unbalanced exaltation of Mercury, then it is about some challenges such as difficulty reflecting on past lessons. You may ignore important insights by focusing only on the now. Resistance to planning for the future could avoid thinking ahead due to an overemphasis on the present moment. Mental rigidity, believing that only what is happening now matters, potentially dismissing long-term vision. About Mercury exalted, the perfection of the intellect through concentration and focus on what is, rather than on what could be or has been. Here is what Ra Uruhu said. If you look inside the 25.2, you see somebody who is just in the now. They don't know why they are doing the things that they do. They are just there in that process. This does not mean that that is intellectual or that they have that intellectual capacity. That is, some will and some won't. It will depend on their design and on whom they meet. But the fact of the matter is that the longer the 25.2 is allowed to be in its motivelessness, the more it will come to recognize ultimately, at the intellectual level, what it means to be surrendered. Again, this is the nature of what universal love is all about. Universal love is the acceptance that we are helpless in all of this, and that all you can do is to not interfere but be right there in the now. In the White Book, Mercury exalted is, the innocence of the self and its protection can only be maintained in the now. Because this is an overview line, these people are pulled out of the now all the time. When they are pulled out of the now, they are shocked. Often it is projected on them that they had a motive all along, but they did not. Mars in detriment, a dedication that can never be free of personal motivation and its attendant projections. A lack of innocence in the now that risks protection through projection. Line 2. The existentialist thrives in the present moment, but when Mars is in detriment, the purity of being fully in the now is compromised by personal motives and projections. Mars, a planet of drive, aggression, and personal ambition, struggles in this placement. Instead of acting with pure spontaneity, there is an unconscious or hidden agenda, even if the person believes they are acting innocently. The core message and theme to integrate is the struggle between true innocence and hidden motives. Mars' fiery energy introduces personal desires that prevent true purity of action. Instead of being fully in the now, there is an unconscious projection of past wounds or future expectations onto the present. Innocence becomes distorted by personal motivations, creating unintended consequences and risking the natural protection that comes with true presence. The lower expression of the energy of this placement is about actions that seem innocent but carry hidden personal motives. Self-interest sneaks into what should be selfless, projecting past experiences or future fears onto the present, making it impossible to fully trust life's flow. Acting out of frustration, impatience, or unconscious agendas rather than pure spontaneity. Losing the natural protection of innocence, when actions are not fully aligned with trust and purity, they can backfire. In its highest expression, with awareness and growth, this placement is about recognizing one's own hidden motivations and projections, becoming more self-aware of unconscious drives, working to consciously act without attachment to outcomes, restoring the purity of innocence. Using Mars's energy constructively, instead of distorting innocence, channeling it into courageous, heart-centered action. The lesson here is to recognize and release hidden personal motives that distort true innocence. Learning to let go of projections and embrace the present without attachment restores the natural protection and purity of the self. You know that this second line placement carries the energy of any second line, the role of being the natural, the responder. However, with the Mars in detriment, this natural flow is compromised by unconscious projections, making it difficult to fully trust the present. The lesson is to become aware of these hidden influences so that innocence and purity can be reclaimed. Remember, what Mars in detriment is, by its very nature, is immature, a dedication that can never be free of personal motivation and its attendant projections. This is because of others. Ra Uruhu said that, this is the moment where the 25.2 is seen by somebody for what they are. Oh, you have been so motiveless, so selfless, but really, you should be rewarded. It is not that they just do this for nothing. They don't even know what they are doing. They are just in it. But the outside force is going to come on them, and because of that, this projection comes in. With projection, there is this mixing of terms where all of a sudden the individual, like the abstract, is suddenly trying to figure out what the pattern is going to be. If I stay selfless, I will become a saint. That can only come from the outside coming in. The whole thing to see is that the love that can be generated out of these gates is what has been generated for the benefit of the totality. It comes out of the individual, but it is there for the global whole. This 25.2 is a very beautiful motivelessness, but, of course, it has to meet the world. And because it is not equipped to deal with the world, it can end up losing its innocence, which means it loses its existential nature. After all, regardless of the perspective of the driver, whether we are looking forward out of the window, or whether we look backwards in the mirror, or whether we are just simply there, we are all in the present together. We are all in the now of the experience together, and the world is fundamentally existential, whether we like it or not. The only way to be is to be in the now, whether we can or not, because we simply are, regardless of our illusion. End of quote. Gate 25, line 3, sensibility. The recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. In human design, Gate 25 embodies innocence, universal love, and spontaneous, uncontrived action. However, in line 3, we see the practical reality of this innocence. It does not always lead to success just because it is pure in intention. This gate carries the role of a third line, as in any third line, the experimenter. Line 3 carries an energy of trial and error. It learns through real-world experience, not just theory. There is a natural tendency to test things out, even if that means stumbling along the way. This line gains wisdom by living through challenges rather than avoiding them. This line teaches sensibility, meaning that while acting from a place of innocence is beautiful, it does not guarantee things will go as expected. Mistakes, failures, and challenges are part of the journey. The overview line communicates a key theme, which is about innocence meets reality. There is a learning process through trial and error. Innocence alone does not mean things will always work out favorably. Even the most well-intended actions can lead to unexpected consequences. The challenge is to stay open-hearted and trusting, even when things don't go as planned. How this line manifests in life is an aspect that is really important to grasp, but in both ways, since there is the higher and lower expression of this, the self and the not self. In the highest expression, this energy can manifest as resilience by learning from failures without losing trust in life. Wisdom through experience, when you understand that mistakes are part of growth. Grounded innocence, maintaining purity of heart while applying practical wisdom. The challenge or the not self is about disillusionment or loss of faith, becoming cynical after repeated failures. Overly naive expectations, thinking that pure intentions alone ensure success. Recklessness, acting impulsively without considering potential consequences. You may have already learned to accept that innocence does not guarantee success, and to move forward with trust, adaptability, and resilience, knowing that every experience and even failure is part of the journey toward wisdom. This is a very valuable lesson. You may understand better the message of this gate from the words of Ra Uruhu. I quote, "The trial and error line is a deeply mystical line, and as such, it has quite a different value in a way at the mystical level. It is an overview line. Sensibility. The recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. This is not the 46. In my work with people, because I am somebody with the 25.3 and the 51, I keep on reminding them that life is not about being happy. It is not about being successful. It is not about any of those things, because all of those things carry with them expectations, motivations, and rewards. It is simply about living your life. That is all. One of the things that you learn in the 46th gate is that if you do live out your nature, you can be lucky. That is, good things can come to you as well as bad things, but at least those things belong to you. So, innocent action, being innocent, does not mean that life will be a success. By being existential, that does not mean necessarily that you are going to be happy or sad. Remember that this is individual. An individual is melancholic, and melancholy is about happy and or sad. It does not mean that life is going to be wonderful just because you are innocent. It can be a horror. There are so many human beings in the world that are forced to live existentially and live at the edge of society, moment by moment by moment. It can be a very unpleasant thing. Nonetheless, by living existentially, one opens up the possibility for universal love in the world. This is the real surrender. Not, my will be done, but thy will be done. This is just to be here in the wave. The nature of this line, this is a very profound line for our time because it is an indication that we live in an era up until 2080 in which it is really possible for us to transcend trial and error and reach wisdom. The reason for that is that we do not have the detriment in this line. We do not have Pluto here for many years from now on. Pluto in detriment. The potential loss of innocence through misfortune that in the extreme can manifest from crime to suicide. The potential loss of spirit through failure or shock. Line 3, sensibility, teaches the hard truth that innocence does not always protect us from failure, hardship, or misfortune. Life's shocks can strip away one's trust and test the resilience of the spirit. With Pluto in detriment, these challenges are intensified, bringing deep transformative experiences that may lead to a crisis of faith, despair, or even destructive behaviors. Pluto governs death, rebirth, and deep psychological transformation. So its detriment here suggests a painful, possibly extreme loss of innocence that may result in a dark night of the soul. The loss of innocence. Through trauma, shock, or failure is the core message of this placement. Pluto forces deep transformation. When innocence is shattered by misfortune, one may experience an existential crisis. A feeling of being abandoned by life or fate, struggling to trust in the universe after painful experiences. The risk of falling into despair, self-destruction, or extreme actions, such as criminal behavior or, in extreme cases, suicide. The challenge of rebuilding faith after innocence is lost, learning that true spirit is not about avoiding hardship, but about rising from it. I know we didn't meet people with Pluto in detriment in this line. We don't know how this plays out in real life, but we can conclude, analyzing the sentences describing this placement. So, for the lower expression of this placement, it seems that it might be about feeling broken or betrayed by life, losing trust in the universe after painful experiences, engaging in destructive behavior. When one's spirit is shattered, there is a risk of turning to reckless, criminal, or even suicidal tendencies. A crisis of faith and spirit. Innocence turns into cynicism or numbness. Being unable to recover from failure or shock, staying stuck in suffering instead of growing from it. For the highest expression of this placement, Pluto brings awareness and growth by finding strength through hardship, understanding that loss of innocence does not mean loss of spirit. Transforming suffering into wisdom, Pluto forces rebirth. Those who endure its trials emerge stronger. Developing deep resilience and compassion, overcoming despair and using pain to help others. Realizing that true spiritual strength comes from surviving life's darkest moments. We can also understand this placement thinking of the role of the third line, which is the experimenter, is about adapting to life's trials. You know that third line energy is trial and error. It learns through experience, often through difficulty. This line must endure challenges to develop wisdom. The key is to accept failure and misfortune as part of growth, not as a reason to lose faith in life. Maybe the lesson here will be to recognize that hardship does not define the spirit. Innocence may be lost through trauma, but true resilience comes from transforming pain into wisdom rather than falling into despair. Even in darkness, the spirit can find renewal. About Pluto in detriment, the potential loss of innocence through misfortune that in the extreme can manifest from crime to suicide, I'll quote what Ross said in Line Companion. Jurgen and I went looking back to the era where Pluto was in Aries and was activating this line. We looked for famous people. There were none. The only thing that we could find for that date is the Brazilian Republic, which I think lasted 2 years. Around this time, in 1820, we had the growth of prisons. This was a direct result of Pluto being in the 25.3. By the way, I want to add to my comment about the ego in this line in terms of doing analysis for people. If you see somebody with a 25.3 who has an open ego, it does not work the same way. The 25.3 without the power of the ego to be able to withstand the shock is going to have problems with its innocence. It will get through because of the inactive plutonic side, but the fact is that the ego is mentioned in this way here. It is essential to understand that a strong ego is something very important in that kind of configuration. We live in pain era in which the shattering of innocence does not lead to failure and crime, does not lead to abuse, but does lead to what is always present in the 25th gate, which is blood. This is the gate of blood. This is the gate of the spirit of the life, the spirit in the blood. Mars exalted. The power of the ego to withstand failure and still maintain its nature. The power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock. Line 3, sensibility, learns through trial and error that innocence does not guarantee success. Life's hardships, failures, and shocks are inevitable. However, when Mars is exalted, there is an innate resilience and warrior-like spirit that allows one to endure challenges without losing faith or identity. Mars is a planet of strength, action, and perseverance, and in this exalted position, it provides the ability to maintain one's core spirit, even in the face of repeated failure and hardship. There is a theme to understand: strength and resilience in the face of life's hardships. Mars brings raw energy, courage, and determination, a fighting spirit that refuses to be broken by setbacks. Instead of being shattered by failure, this energy fuels perseverance and the ability to rise again. Ego strength is key. One's sense of self remains intact despite external struggles. The power of the spirit to remain unshaken, even when life delivers painful lessons. Mars exalted, when you are aligned with the energy of this gate and of this planet, is about an unbreakable spirit, being able to endure and overcome repeated failures without losing faith. Ego strength that is not arrogance, but resilience. Self-belief remains intact despite challenges. Viewing failures as stepping stones, not defeats, always finding a way forward. An ability to recover from shocks and hardships quickly, using them as fuel for growth. Mars exalted may appear unbalanced in our life, in our low expression of this placement, such as over-identifying with struggle, believing that strength only comes from enduring hardship, leading to unnecessary battles. Recklessness or defiance in the face of failure, fighting against the inevitable instead of adapting. Pride that prevents learning from mistakes. If too attached to the ego, one may refuse to acknowledge needed change. Embrace failure as part of the journey while maintaining an unshakable sense of self and spirit. True strength is not about avoiding hardship, but about standing tall no matter what life throws your way. The warrior spirit does not crumble, it evolves. What is interesting here, in this placement to observe, is the power of the ego. Ra commented on this, I quote, "Right away, we have something interesting here, because we have been seeing all along that whenever the ego is mentioned, we get to see a detrimental impact on the nature of the self. In other words, we get to see the self trying to be possessive and claim something, instead of just accepting the nature of what is. But here we have something very different. Mars exalted, and particularly at its best in this sense. Mars is exalted in Aries anyway, to withstand failure and still maintain its nature. In my work, I have analyzed all kinds of things in the nature of my life, and obviously, I paid a lot of attention to my experience with the voice and the mechanisms at work. There is no question for me that my survival of that was rooted in the fact that I have the 25.3, one of the many things that kept me alive in that experience so that I was not destroyed. The fact that there was no Pluto there, The fact that there was no possibility of that really becoming not only shattered by the experience, but criminal. With the knowledge that I was given, I could have stayed secretly a black magician. I still could. The knowledge that I was given, the things that I was told that I could do, the things that were possible with the knowledge that was given to me. But I do not live in a Plutonic age where that criminality is something possible, out of that shattering in the trial and error. Remember that the third line does not know that there is something on the other side. It is not transpersonal. It is different when you have the whole channel. That is what initiation is all about. It is about the recognition of that. But the fact is that the third line, by itself, does not know that. In the White Book, the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock, failure in its motiveless action. In other words, that motiveless action suddenly is something that just falls apart. All right, that motiveless action has to meet a more powerful force and is shocked. All right, it will find a way to maintain its innocence regardless of that. Gate 25, line 4, survival. The nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. This line carries the message and the role of a fourth line, the influencer. A line 4 energy is social and foundational, influencing others through stability and trust. People with gate 25.4 often serve as a beacon of hope for those around them, showing that true innocence cannot be destroyed. This line naturally uplifts and inspires others by embodying unwavering faith in life. Talking about this line 4 of gate 25, which represents universal love, innocence, and trust in life, line 4, survival, specifically within the theme of gate 25, teaches that true innocence is unbreakable. No matter what challenges or hardships arise, the spirit can remain pure and untarnished. This line reflects a deep inner resilience that allows one to stay connected to the essence of love and trust, even in the face of suffering, trauma, or crisis. The core meaning of this line is about unshakable innocence. True innocence is not dependent on external conditions. It is an inner state of being. No matter how difficult life becomes, the spirit remains intact, refusing to be corrupted by pain, fear, or negativity. This is a lesson in spiritual endurance, maintaining openness, trust, and love, even in the darkest moments. In Your Real Life is about resilience through adversity, remaining open-hearted despite hardship, compassionate strength, helping others stay hopeful in difficult times, deep trust in life, understanding that even suffering has purpose and meaning. But, on the other side, there is potential for certain pitfalls and a lower expression of this gate, such as emotional numbness when you close off the heart as a defense mechanism, losing faith in innocence, believing the world is too harsh to stay open and trusting, becoming bitter or cynical, allowing external hardships to harden the spirit. In time, you will understand that innocence is a state of being, not a result of circumstances. No matter how harsh life gets, the heart can remain open, loving, and trusting, because true innocence is indestructible. The archetype of Michael brings the theme of divine order and the protection of it. ALCYONE is about your mind and thoughts. So, be aware of your own thinking, your mindset. This is the purpose of the first trimester, through the archetype of Michael, to build the angelic mind. In relation to this fourth line, here is what Ra Uruhu said. The 46.4 is an exalted fourth line. It is the line of impact. This 25.4 is its polarity. It is exactly opposite the 46.4, and it is one of the most exalted lines that we are going to find. It is one these rare lines that has a double exaltation, like in the 11.4. So you notice that in fourth lines, there are some very important attributes simply because fourth lines can have a great deal of influence, because they are one-tracked and fixed on their process, and they are transpersonal. Remember that this is the only gate of the self pointed to the ego, and the relationship between the self and the ego is one of the most important within our vehicle. So, when you have a transpersonal line in the 25th gate, this 25.4 knows the ego on the other side, knows what that ego is and what its power presents. And in that sense, it has the capacity over time. This is an overview line. The nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The nature of true motivelessness. Here are people that are fixed. This is the harmony to the first line. And one-tracked in their selflessness, and of course, this is the great exaltation. Again, because of the overview line, you do not start off that way. Venus exalted. The beauty of the rose in the garbage dump. Jupiter is also exalted. The highest principles, even amongst the greatest decadents. The spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances. No polarity. Gate 25, known as the Gate of Innocence, represents pure, unconditioned love and an unwavering connection to the higher self. Line 4, survival, teaches that true innocence is not fragile. It can withstand even the harshest of environments without being corrupted. With Venus exalted, this line expresses grace, beauty, and unwavering devotion to higher values, even in difficult, chaotic, or morally corrupt situations. With Jupiter exalted, this innocence is not only preserved but expanded. It becomes a guiding force of wisdom, generosity, and spiritual leadership. This placement describes a spiritual warrior, someone who remains true to their highest principles, even in the face of adversity, temptation, or darkness. The obvious theme is innocence that cannot be corrupted. Holding on to purity and truth, even in the most corrupt or difficult environments. Seeing beauty and hope in any situation, no matter how bleak. Being a source of inspiration and light for others, even when surrounded by negativity. Demonstrating unshakable integrity and faith in higher ideals. This placement is about maintaining purity of heart, despite hardship, negativity, or toxic surroundings. Becoming a role model for resilience, love, and higher wisdom. Having an aura of grace and strength that uplifts others. Transcending personal struggles to embody a larger spiritual truth. Finding meaning and beauty even in suffering. Potential challenges may come up when you are not aligned with the energy of this line, such as being surrounded by negativity and struggling to maintain one's purity. Feeling isolated or misunderstood for holding on to higher values. Being tempted to compromise principles but ultimately resisting. You are here to embody unwavering spiritual strength and beauty, even in the darkest of times. True innocence is not about naivety. It is about resilience, love, and faith that cannot be shaken. Even in the midst of hardship or decadence, the highest principles can shine through, just like a rose blooming in the garbage dump, untouched, pure, and radiant. This is the lesson of being a spiritual warrior, standing firm in truth and light, no matter the circumstances. Venus exalted, the beauty of the rose in the garbage dump. This is a beautiful line in the Rave I Ching, the beauty of the rose in the garbage dump, just for what it is. The manifestation, the one-trackedness of innocence can exist in any kind of decadence. It makes no difference. In the White Book, the spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances, Jupiter is also exalted. Ra said that, what you have is that Venus establishes our basic morals, and Jupiter writes the law. The two of them together establish the framework of how societies and communities function. These two together in this line, and we find them together in the fifth line again, is a very important connection. Whenever you see Venus and Jupiter together in a line, you know that it has a very strong impact on the way society sees and functions. The highest principles even amongst the greatest decadents. There is no significant difference in this language. There is no planet in detriment. What we have here is not only a fourth line that is by its very nature fixed and one-tracked, but by the nature of the line itself is fixed and one-tracked. There is only exaltation. There is only this ability to maintain innocence regardless of the circumstance. A very beautiful line. The wonderful thing about being one-tracked is if it stays on the track, it will arrive, like a train when it is on the track. It will arrive. That is a security. The whole thing about being one-pointed when you are here in an existentialist line is that no matter what happens to you, you are always remaining existentialist. That is the value here. End of quote. Gate 25, line 5, recuperation. When innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing is the first priority. Line 5 energy, as MI fifth line, has a practical, problem-solving nature, often helping others through guidance. The role of a fifth line is the fixer and guide. With Gate 25.5, this means understanding the importance of healing and teaching others to do the same. These individuals may naturally attract people in need of healing, but must first ensure their own recuperation before helping others. Analyzing this fifth line of Gate 25, knowing that in human design, Gate 25 represents innocence, universal love, and trust in life. Although in this line 5, recuperation, we see that even the purest innocence can be drained, wounded, or exhausted by life's struggles. This line teaches that when innocence is weakened, whether by trauma, betrayal, disappointment, or exhaustion, recovery and healing must come first, before one can return to their natural state of openness and trust. The main theme that we see when breaking down the overview line is prioritizing healing before moving forward. Innocence can be damaged through life's hardships, leading to exhaustion, disillusionment, or emotional burnout. Recognizing when you need rest, care, and time to heal is crucial before jumping back into the world. True innocence is not lost forever. It can be restored through conscious recuperation. In its highest expression, this line is about self-care and restoration, taking time to heal after emotional or spiritual exhaustion, patience with oneself, understanding that recovery is a process, not something to rush, rebuilding trust and innocence, allowing wounds to heal so love and openness can return. On the other side, the duality of manifestation might bring, when you are not aligned with yourself, some challenges, such as ignoring the need for healing, pushing forward when rest is required, leading to deeper exhaustion, becoming stuck in wounds, refusing to heal, leading to cynicism or emotional shutdown, losing faith in innocence altogether, believing that pain has permanently destroyed purity. The lesson is to recognize that innocence is not lost, only wounded, and that healing must come first before returning to trust and openness. This line teaches that restoring vitality is a necessary part of the journey. Only from a healed place can innocence fully shine again. As Ra-Uru-Hu said, it is a very strange line. If the 46.5 is the weakest of the fifth lines, well, the 25.5 is not far behind. That is, this is a line that is weak for a reason, in the sense that the only time that most human beings are existential is when they are sick. Think about that. Think about the last time that you were ill. You were right there in the sickness. You can't escape it. It is unpleasant. You don't like it. It does not allow you to focus on the future. It does not really allow you to reflect on the past. It just keeps you stuck at being sick. And in being sick, you are in the now, and in being in the now, you are finally being yourself. Most human beings never come to themselves until they are sick. They do not come to themselves until they are sick, because the sickness that they have is because they are not themselves in the first place. Because of that, in trying to heal themselves of that sickness, they are actually trying to come back to themselves without understanding it. The moment that somebody recovers from an illness is the moment that they can start again to be themselves. Of course, they immediately go out and take on the same kind of conditioning again and get sick again. When they get sick again, they get thrown into the existential plane again, so they heal themselves on the existential level. There is no other way to heal other than in the now, because you know that you can't get out until you are better. There is nothing you can do but be there. So, this is a very strange line. It is a great line of projection. Everybody is looking to that fifth line and projecting onto that innocence and motivelessness. You are the innocent one. You are the motiveless one. You have the spirit that I, or humanity, could use. The now is about being healthy, recuperation. When innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing, this is the only line that speaks of healing, is the first priority. When somebody projects onto you, remember the harmony to the second line and the problems with being brought to a place of motivation by others. Here it is even stronger. What you have here is other people wanting to project onto your innocence, wanting your innocence to be their spirit. That takes strength away, and in taking vitality away, it takes away the vitality to be innocent in the now. And the only way that you can avoid that is to withdraw. End of quote. Venus, exalted, the ability to recognize the inner meaning of an affliction and to withdraw until it is healed. The power of the spirit to heal and be healed. Line 5, recuperation, teaches that even innocence can be wounded, but true wisdom lies in understanding suffering, withdrawing to heal, and emerging renewed. With the Venus exalted, this process is infused with grace, harmony, and a deep understanding of the necessity of healing. Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and inner balance, brings an elegant capacity for self-care, spiritual renewal, and faith in the healing process. This placement ensures that even in times of affliction, the spirit recognizes the deeper meaning of suffering and finds peace in retreat and restoration. Being a fifth line placement, there is a recognition that suffering has a purpose, and through healing, one gains deeper insight into the human experience. Once healed, this line can help others find their own path to healing. Only when you are in the now, only when you are being in the experience of your body, only when you are accepting your rhythm, are you healthy. The mystery of this line is that healing oneself is about withdrawal from conditioning. This is what healing is about, to withdraw from conditioning and to heal the conditioners. Breaking down the sentence of this placement, we deal with the healing power of the spirit as a key theme here, and it's about the ability to recognize when one is wounded and step back to heal, finding inner meaning in affliction, understanding that suffering can lead to wisdom and transformation, healing with grace and patience, not forcing recovery, but allowing it to unfold naturally, trusting in the process of renewal, knowing that stepping away to heal is not weakness, but wisdom. Venus exalted brings in your life deep self-awareness, knowing when to withdraw and focus on healing rather than pushing through pain. A natural ability to heal oneself and others, offering comfort, peace, and understanding. Recognizing affliction as part of the spiritual journey, not seeing it as a failure but as a necessary experience for growth. Exuding grace, patience, and trust in divine timing, knowing that healing cannot be rushed. When you don't embrace this placement, you see yourself struggling to recognize the need for withdrawal, leading to burnout or prolonged suffering. There is the fear of appearing weak, resisting the need to rest and heal due to external pressures. Maybe you hold on to pain too long, not fully allowing oneself to heal and move forward. Just honor the need for healing and trust in the process of renewal. True strength is not in pushing through pain, but in recognizing when to step back, reflect, and restore one's spirit. Healing is not a weakness. It is a sacred act of self-love and wisdom. This is the energy of the spiritual healer, the one who understands that healing is a journey, not a race. Jupiter in detriment, hypochondria, and the need to be healed by others. The weakness of the spirit which requires healing from others. Line 5, recuperation, focuses on the process of healing and renewal, recognizing when one must withdraw to restore balance. However, with Jupiter in detriment, instead of becoming the wise healer, it remains the dependent seeker of healing unless self-awareness is developed. The lesson is to recognize one's inner power to heal, rather than constantly looking outward. With this placement, the energy of this line shifts from self-sufficiency to dependency on others for healing. Instead of recognizing the inner meaning of affliction and allowing for natural recuperation, there is a tendency toward over-reliance on external sources of healing, people, therapies, external validation, a weakness in the spirit that struggles to regenerate itself without outside help. Hypochondria, a psychological focus on illness or suffering that may not even be real, or an exaggerated response to difficulties. Jupiter, in its exalted state, represents expansion, wisdom, and faith, but in detriment, it can manifest as overindulgence, lack of self-trust, and seeking external saviors rather than looking inward for strength. We deal here with an essential theme regarding the challenge of self-healing versus dependence on others. It's about a fragile spirit that easily feels broken and unable to self-heal. You might constantly seek external validation, comfort, or solutions instead of developing inner resilience. It's about hypochondria or excessive focus on illness, either physical or emotional. With this placement, you feel powerless in the face of suffering, unable to trust in your own capacity for healing. In real life, the law expression of Jupiter in detriment is about chronic victim mentality, feeling incapable of healing without external help. Emotional or physical hypochondria, overfixation on illness or affliction, sometimes amplifying suffering unnecessarily. Seeking constant reassurance and healing from others, never fully trusting one's own ability to recover. A tendency to give up too easily in the face of challenges, lacking the belief that healing is possible from within. Just honor the need for healing and trust in the process of renewal. True strength is not in pushing through pain, but in recognizing when to step back, reflect, and restore one's spirit. Healing is not a weakness. It is a sacred act of self-love and wisdom. This is the energy of the spiritual healer, the one who understands that healing is a journey, not a race. Jupiter in detriment, hypochondria, and the need to be healed by others. The weakness of the spirit which requires healing from others. Line 5, recuperation, focuses on the process of healing and renewal, recognizing when one must withdraw to restore balance. However, with Jupiter in detriment, instead of becoming the wise healer, it remains the dependent seeker of healing unless self-awareness is developed. The lesson is to recognize one's inner power to heal, rather than constantly looking outward. With this placement, the energy of this line shifts from self-sufficiency to dependency on others for healing. Instead of recognizing the inner meaning of affliction and allowing for natural recuperation, there is a tendency toward over-reliance on external sources of healing, people, therapies, external validation, a weakness in the spirit that struggles to regenerate itself without outside help. Hypochondria, a psychological focus on illness or suffering that may not even be real, or an exaggerated response to difficulties. Jupiter, in its exalted state, represents expansion, wisdom, and faith, but in detriment, it can manifest as overindulgence, lack of self-trust, and seeking external saviors rather than looking inward for strength. We deal here with an essential theme regarding the challenge of self-healing versus dependence on others. It's about a fragile spirit that easily feels broken and unable to self-heal. You might constantly seek external validation, comfort, or solutions instead of developing inner resilience. It's about hypochondria or excessive focus on illness, either physical or emotional. With this placement, you feel powerless in the face of suffering, unable to trust in your own capacity for healing. In real life, the law expression of Jupiter in detriment is about chronic victim mentality, feeling incapable of healing without external help. Emotional or physical hypochondria, overfixation on illness or affliction, sometimes amplifying suffering unnecessarily. Seeking constant reassurance and healing from others, never fully trusting one's own ability to recover. A tendency to give up too easily in the face of challenges, lacking the belief that healing is possible from within. If and when you are aligned with this energy, from a place of awareness, you'll have the opportunity to manifest this energy to the higher expression of it. By recognizing the need to develop inner strength instead of relying on external sources, using external healing as a temporary support, but not as a crutch, you learn from others while also building self-reliance. By developing faith in the natural healing process, understanding that pain and setbacks are part of the journey but do not define the self. Balancing help from others with personal responsibility for healing, learning to nurture one's own spirit. Ra Uruhu explains this placement, Jupiter in detriment. I quote, hypochondria and the need to be healed by others. This is something very important to understand. The moment that your innocence is sapped of its vitality, and the moment that somebody is projecting onto your spirit, in that moment, you take in their conditioning, and in the moment that you go for their conditioning, you become the sick one and they have to heal you. They, of course, heal you with what does not belong to you, and so you stay the sick one. It is so important to understand what healing is really all about, that there is no need for anyone to be healed as long as they are not taken away from their nature. The moment innocence is sapped of its vitality, disease is in the world. So what that means is that as long as we are not being innocent, as long as we are not being what we are, we create disease, we create illness, and it is a self-serving process. After all, disease is one of the greatest employers in the world. Hospitals, doctors, homeopaths, medicines, factories, recuperations, spas, healers, all of that comes back to the same thing. Universal love is getting down and realizing, hey, it is not up to me. All I have to do is to accept what it is to be me, and I'm going to be fine. But the moment I try to be something else, the moment I try to accept the conditioning to be something else, is the moment that I bring sickness into the world. If you don't live out your rhythm, you take love away from the world. If you don't live in your body and accept what it is to live in your body, you take away the capacity for success for humanity. The moment that you do not live selflessly, motiveless, you bring disease into the world. In the White Book, the weakness of the spirit which requires healing from others. The fifth line is the line of priesthood and doctors. It is the priesthood of the healing shaman. It is the priesthood of blame, the blame that says, you are sick because of this or that. That is both positive and negative. In other words, sometimes it is the truth, and sometimes it is sheer nonsense. This is one of the ways to try to find out how we can be healthy. One of the things you will find about 25.5s is that they tend to be sickly. End of quote. Gate 25, line 6, ignorance. False innocence betrayed by actions. The role of a sixth line is the role model and observer, and this sixth line of Gate 25 is indeed connected to this aspect. Line 6, energy is about elevation, perspective, and refinement. It seeks the highest truth. In Gate 25.6, this means learning the difference between true and false innocence, and eventually becoming a guide for others. This line observes life deeply and may go through a phase of disillusionment before realizing what true purity really is. Gate 25 represents innocence, universal love, and spontaneous action free from personal motive. However, in line 6, ignorance, we see a crucial distinction. Not all innocence is true innocence. Some forms of innocence, are merely illusions, and they are exposed by actions. This line warns against naivety, self-deception, or the assumption that purity alone is enough. True innocence is wise and aware, while false innocence is blind and careless, and life will inevitably reveal the difference. In this line 6, innocence must be genuine, not pretended or assumed, as we can conclude from the overview line, false innocence betrayed by actions. False innocence is tested through real-world actions. If one claims to be pure but behaves irresponsibly, their innocence is an illusion. Some may believe themselves to be innocent, ignorance, but fail to recognize how their actions cause harm or reveal unconscious motives. True innocence is not passive or blind. It must be backed by wisdom, awareness, and aligned action. When you are not aligned with the energy of this line, be aware of blind innocence, believing oneself to be pure while acting in ways that betray it. Also, there is a tendency to avoiding responsibility, using "I didn't know" as an excuse for careless or harmful actions. Self-righteousness, assuming moral superiority without true self-awareness. A valuable lesson for taking advantage of the energy of this gate is to recognize that innocence is proven through action, not just belief. False innocence is naive and blind, while true innocence is wise and aware. Learning to see through illusions and take responsibility is the path to embodying the highest expression of this line. The words of Ra regarding this line are also a valuable lesson for all of us trying to learn human design. I quote, "Like any of these 6 lines we are dealing with, it is something that is outside of the basic nature of a hexagram. It is withdrawn from it. It is sitting above. Keep in mind that all of these 6 lines are going to flower soon. That is, when we step into the next cycle in 2027, and we are living in a 6th line, instead of a first line theme, this is going to be the flowering of that, the opening up of the emotional spirit through the 55.6, and the beginning of a process in which 6 lines are going to come into a different epoch and really be part of their time. So we are in a developmental process towards that time where 6th lines come down from their rooftops and get involved. Everything about the nature of the 25th gate started in the overview of the lines in the first place. It said, the perfection of action. When you come to the 25.6, you are dealing with a line that has a deep perspective. It can look into the centering circuit. It can look into integration. It can look into the whole individual process, and as such, its vision, its ideal, is enormous by comparison. In order for it to make a commitment to anything, it has to see that the value of mutation is there. Without mutation, motiveless action does not mean anything. The whole substance then becomes useless. What action? What is the action that requires us to be motiveless? What action is the perfection of motivelessness? I am not somebody who spends much time, since the last 10 or 15 years, with what other people think about the nature of what it is to be, but it is one of those extraordinary questions, and so many great thinkers are trying to come up with a formula. For me, it is clear that I am choiceless. It is the only thing that I can see as the simplest way of discovering what it is to be. For me, here, in this 6th line, lies the possibility to recognize choicelessness and to see that action is not something that has to be contemplated, but action is something simply to be accepted without motive. Earth exalted, the least mild of a negative position, where inappropriate action is censured. The loss of innocence through inappropriate action. Line 6, ignorance, sits at the top of the hexagram, meaning it carries a high-level perspective, but also faces the challenge of maintaining innocence without falling into naivety or reckless behavior. The role of a 6th line is the detached observer and role model. Line 6 often tries to remain above the struggles of the lower lines, but here it learns that mistakes and consequences are part of life. The challenge is to integrate wisdom with innocence rather than believing one is immune to consequences. Eventually, this line can become a guide by showing how to balance purity with responsibility. With Earth exalted, this line emphasizes grounded consequences. When innocence is lost through inappropriate actions, the world responds with censure, correction, and accountability. This is not a mild loss of innocence. It is met with clear repercussions. Earth represents stability, reality, and structure. So when innocence is betrayed through misjudgment or reckless actions, the world reacts firmly, demanding responsibility. This is a learning moment where experience replaces blind trust, and actions that compromise innocence do not go unnoticed. The consequences of misguided actions is the core meaning of this placement, an essential theme. We can understand that it's about losing innocence by making mistakes that lead to external correction or punishment, acting inappropriately due to ignorance or arrogance, and facing backlash from reality, being censured or corrected when actions betray innocence and integrity, learning through hard lessons rather than pure experience. When you are not aligned with this energy, you might enter into reckless or inappropriate actions that cause harm, whether intentional or not. Or you are naive about consequences, thinking actions have no impact, but only to be met with strong resistance. You show arrogance, that type of arrogance that assumes purity alone can justify any action. From an awareness position, being aligned with this placement, this could unfold in your real life in a high frequency. This and that is always present in any line. So, the Earth exalted can be about learning through real-world experience that innocence must be paired with wisdom. Understanding that actions have consequences, you learn to act with greater awareness. Grounding innocence in reality, staying pure in spirit but wise in action. Accepting correction with humility, using it as a path to refinement. Earth exalted is the lesson of accountability. You will eventually understand that spiritual purity must be matched with practical responsibility. In relation to the Earth exalted, ignorance, false innocence betrayed by actions, Ra said that the milder of a negative position where inappropriate action is censured. These children find out very quickly that no matter how innocent they are, if the actions are not right, they get to suffer a great deal, and they become very careful later in their life about what kind of action they engage in, to the point that they do not engage in action at all. Uranus in detriment, constant inappropriate and destabilizing actions whose very counterproductiveness strips away the facade of innocence. Constant inappropriate action in times of challenges that can break the spirit. Line 6, ignorance, stands at the highest position of the hexagram and often carries a detached, idealistic, or extreme perspective. This line struggles with the challenge of maintaining innocence without slipping into naivety, recklessness, or illusion. With Uranus in detriment, the energy becomes erratic, disruptive, and unpredictable. Uranus represents rebellion, innovation, and sudden change, but in detriment, it manifests as unstable and inappropriate actions that disrupt rather than enlighten. Repeatedly acting in ways that destroy innocence instead of refining it. Ignoring consequences, leading to unnecessary suffering and a loss of faith in oneself or life. This placement highlights a pattern of counterproductive behavior where instead of learning from mistakes, one continues making disruptive choices that erode innocence, leading to a broken spirit. We can deduce from the sentences of this placement a theme of repeatedly acting against one's own best interests, unfolding by engaging in reckless, destabilizing behavior, especially during difficult times. Losing innocence not just through a single mistake, but through repeated counterproductive actions. rejecting wisdom and guidance, insisting on one's own way, even when it leads to suffering. Stripping away the illusion of innocence by revealing the consequences of poor choices. Experiencing disillusionment when the naive belief that everything will be fine is shattered. Do you repeat the same mistakes, despite clear warnings or lessons from the past? If yes, that's a low expression of this placement. And for sure you act in ways that cause unnecessary chaos and hardships, and then you feel victimized. You reject responsibility for your actions and blame external forces. The low expression of this placement is also about breaking one's own spirit through self-destructive behavior, leading to disillusionment. In time, you learn to become aligned. You embrace this energy by recognizing the pattern of destabilizing actions and choosing to break the cycle. Understanding that true innocence is not about avoiding responsibility. Using Uranian energy for innovation rather than chaos, and find new ways to restore balance. Turning past failures into lessons that strengthen the spirit rather than breaking it. About Uranus in detriment and the White Book descriptions, Ra Uruhu gives us some clear explanations. I quote, "It is not enough to be motiveless in one's spirit. One's actions have to be pure and unmotivated. They simply have to be a byproduct of being. In the White Book, the loss of innocence through inappropriate action or constant inappropriate action in times of challenge that can break the spirit." The 25.6 goes to the 17.1, which is all about collecting endless amounts of opinions. It is an openness to all kinds of stimuli. In other words, what has the 25.6 to do? My God, there are a lot of actions in the world. There are so many different ways, different formulas. The 17th gate is the great gate of organizing humanity. That is what it is there for. It comes back to the question of, what is innocence? The 25.6 can always look at the activities of others, and they see clearly whether they are motivated or innocent. It can always tell. It has quite a gift in that sense. But for itself, it is a very difficult process. Only when they see that action can be motiveless, only then it is possible for them. It has to be concretized in their opinion. In other words, they have to see its value to humanity. They have to see that it has a mutative quality. These people often have their innocence broken, but fortunately for them, they do not have the harmony to the 3 in detriment, because Pluto is not there, so they do not suffer deeply in their innocence being broken. They simply pull away and withdraw. Withdrawal is one of the secrets of the 25th gate. Somebody who only has the 25 has to learn to move themselves away from others. When I was giving name groupings for various hexagrams, and I was putting together the hexagrams of aloneness, the 12, 33, 40, I was very tempted to add the 25. I did not because I thought it would confuse people. It is so important to understand that the 25th gate is only at its best when it is alone, because then it is innocent. Limitation is everything for humanity. Limitation, the 60th gate, part of the individual circuitry, says that there is a structure for everything. The only thing to recognize is the structure. Once you understand the nature of structure, then you can find a way to see that whatever moves through that structure will be a polarity, a binary like everything else in life. But the structure is the framework. The framework for a 25, the structure, in the language of individuality, in the 4323, is that when innocence is sapped of vitality, withdraw. Withdrawal means so much to innocence because it brings one back to the self. This is being in the cave all by themselves. All that they say is, I am now. They are pure innocence. Withdrawal and aloneness have enormous value to the 25. The 25.6 is great at being a fool on the hill, totally away from everything and quite common in this day and age watching television. Their favorite line then is, look at that phony. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 25th gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 25th gate, 25th hexagram, right angle cross of the vessel of love, consisting of following gates: 25, 46, 10, 15. People whose sense of higher cosmic, transpersonal, and universal love provide balance to humanity's direction or drive to survive and replicate the species. At the very center of all your energies is love. You have the love of the body, the love of humanity, the love of behavior, and universal love. You are here to be universally loving to all things. You may be met with a shock at some point in your life, and your challenge is to overcome it. Juxtaposition: cross of innocence, consisting of following gates: 25, 46, 58, 52. People who are focused on enjoying life and can convince you to feel good about the nature of yours, the pursuit of happiness. You are here to be an influence on the world about bringing forward the love of life and living. This is not necessarily about finding happiness, although that is the ideal situation. This is about finding that effervescent joy of being in body and going through this human existence. Left angle cross of healing, consisting of following gates: 25, 46, 58, 52. People focused on maintaining the joy, quality of life, through the love of being alive in a healthy body, who have a special sensitivity to those struggling with dis-ease. They are here to heal or to be healed through medicine. The energy of your cross is to communicate the value of being healthy and its necessity for a joyful life. All the other things, food, money, love, pale in comparison if you do not have your health and the ability to enjoy it. As a cross of the healer, there is a tendency to go through periods of sickness yourself so you can preach to the world about the joy and benefit of healing and being healthy. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening, and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative, learning materials regarding human design. Thank you.